Imagine with me for a moment this scenario. Police officer pulls someone over for driving over the speed limit. They pull them over, they go up to the vehicle, they ask for their registration and their license, and something seems kind of off about the driver. They're not making any eye contact. They seem kind of shifty. They're kind of moving their fingers kind of weird and they're starting to rock back and forth a little bit. This behavior is not really typical. So this makes the police officer wonder, is this person done something illegal? Do they have something illegal on them? Is there a reason that this person would be so fidgety and flighty? It's alarming for the police officer, but they go ahead and take the information first. And while they're looking over it, they just simply ask the driver, have you been drinking anything today? The driver now is getting into bigger rocking motions and isn't looking at the officer and doesn't respond. And this is getting concerning for the officer to the point that he goes ahead and he calls for backup and he asks this person to please step out of the vehicle. At this point, things get really alarming. They're holding onto the wheel and they're going back and forth and they're saying, get out of the vehicle, get out of the vehicle, get out of the vehicle. And it seems to be escalating. This is extremely alarming for the officer. By the end of it, backup comes. They go ahead and take this person into custody and they search the vehicle, expecting to find perhaps that they had something illegal in it, but there's nothing illegal found in the vehicle. And when they finish with the individual, they find out that they haven't had any alcohol, they weren't on any drugs, they were completely sober. They were just someone who has autism spectrum disorder. While this is obviously a hypothetical situation, it's not terribly unlike many that people have reported experiencing with police officers. My name is Stephanie, and I'm an autistic adult, advocate, and certified occupational therapy assistant. I live in the state of Oklahoma, and I've done some volunteer work with the Autism Foundation of Oklahoma. Part of what they do involves legislative level type of work for autistic individuals and their families. And today I want to talk to you about a very important bill that I was able to assist with providing input as part of a committee with Autism Foundation of Oklahoma. The relationship between law enforcement and autistic individuals is concerning and well documented across news stories and research papers. I believe that this should be addressed with legislation. And so I'm going to be talking to you about Oklahoma House Bill 3671, which will equip officers with training and information as well as providing autistic people with personal choice. The bill is for an optional autism identifier placed on your driver's license or other form of ID. This bill needs your support to help make interactions with the police safer for autistic people. As I mentioned before, the relationship between autistic people and law enforcement doesn't have the greatest history. According to a 2020 research article by Gardner and Campbell on law enforcement officers' preparation for calls involving autism, the majority of the participating law enforcement officers had responded to calls involving someone with ASD, and 20% of those calls resulted in involuntary psychiatric hospitalization. Additionally, a 2017 research article by Rava and colleagues indicated that by the time autistic people reach the age of 21, about 20% of them have been stopped and questioned by police, and 5% of them have been arrested. The most likely reason for this is that traits associated with autism are easily misinterpreted by others, especially by law enforcement. The 2023 article on autism training for law enforcement officers by Skrikovic and colleagues notes that behaviors such as difficulty and delays in speech and communication, physical and verbal repetitive behaviors, over or under sensitivity to sensory input, poor eye contact, and inflexibility to routines may increase or exacerbate encounters with police officers, as they might be misinterpreted as signs of intoxication, disrespect, or defiance. Autistic behaviors can look shifty or shady, and police officers are likely to interpret this as somehow threatening or suspicious. The 2021 research paper by Haas and Gibbs referenced a recent experimental study that suggested that autistic people find it difficult to persuade police of their innocence when erroneously suspected of criminal activity due to difficulty with comprehension and perspective taking, meaning that once a police interaction occurs, an autistic person is unlikely to be able to clear up any misunderstandings. To address this issue of police interactions with autistic people, you should support the Oklahoma House Bill 3671 Optional Autism Identifier. This bill would create an optional autism identifier to be placed on driver licenses or on identification cards issued by the state of Oklahoma. A driver's license or an identification card are not likely to be lost. Those are important documents that you have to have on you most of the time. And these aren't likely to be forgotten in a police interaction because that's one of the first things that an officer is going to ask to have from you. And obviously, since it's part of the driver's license and they would be trained on this, officers would know that it is legitimate. Something else really important is that the license plate and registration of the primarily driven vehicle by the autistic person would also be on file. So this means that if someone were to pull you over, they would know from running your plate that you are autistic. This is extremely valuable because it would give them the information before they even approach the vehicle. The information for an emergency contact and any other helpful information would be available for the officer to see. Quite importantly, this bill also calls for a training program to be created and implemented for law enforcement officers to learn how to use information, how to interact with autistic individuals, and how to de-escalate situations with autistic people. Not only would this aid autistic people who have the ability to drive, but also individuals regardless of their ability to drive because it is included also on identification cards. This is especially important because according to a 2019 research article on interactions between the police and autistic people by Copenhaver and Tewksbury, roughly half of the interactions reported on involved autistic individuals having gone missing or wandering, and many of these situations did not have ideal endings. This bill was created with the input from autistic people through the Autism Foundation of Oklahoma, who worked with Representative Miller. The identifier is a net positive and is entirely optional. Those who are concerned that having an identifier could put them at some kind of disadvantage do not have to opt in and have this identifier on their cards. Information associated with the identifier can be updated, revised, or removed at any time. This includes having the identifier at all. So if someone decides to opt in and later changes their mind or feel that it is somehow putting them at a disadvantage, they can be taken off, have the identifier taken off, and completely removed from the system. Information kept in the database will not be considered a government record. This means that this information is not discoverable by anyone unless there was a subpoena issued by a grand jury or court in a criminal matter. Additionally, this information is only accessible to those who were assigned directly to maintain the database. And for law enforcement officers, when they're accessing motor vehicle records for a motor vehicle stop or other interaction to assist in identifying and effectively communicating with a person diagnosed with autism. Your support with this bill is essential. This bill was authored by Representative Miller in conjunction with the Autism Foundation of Oklahoma. The bill has passed through the House of Representatives and is going to be heard on the Senate floor this Monday, April 15th. To support this bill, call or email your legislative representatives, which you can find at oklegislature.gov/findmylegislature. Be sure to mention the bill number HB3671, the optional autism identifier. Share why you feel that your representative should support this bill and include any personal effect that this might have on you or your loved ones. If you find it difficult to craft emails and to provide supporting points, the Autism Foundation of Oklahoma actually has a sample template that you can use. But I highly encourage you to modify this and personalize it because personalized contact means so much to our legislative representatives. In this video, I shared about problems that can arise between police officers and autistic individuals, Oklahoma House Bill 3671 and how it can help address the issue, and how you can support and contact your legislative representatives to get this bill passed through. While much of this video is specifically for my fellow Oklahomans, I am really interested if there are any laws that are similar to this in your state or your country to help protect autistic individuals in interactions with law enforcement to avoid misunderstandings and escalating situations unnecessarily. Thank you. Bye.